Sony Xperia 5 III review, when small doesn't mean less. Sony increasingly makes its phones for a small, but vocal niche, and the Xperia 5 III is no different. For those who are drawn to the unusual aspect ratio, complex camera features, and powerful display, this is an excellent package, arguably even more appealing than the flagship Xperia 1 III, but like that phone, it comes with serious drawbacks too. The camera in particular is only powerful if you know how to use it well, and makes for a fairly poor point-and-shoot option at the price. The oddities mean this is a phone best suited for those willing to work at the camera or anyone who needs a small, but flagship, Android phone and is willing to pay for it. If that describes you, then there's a lot to love here. The first thing you're likely to notice about the Xperia 5 III, like any recent Xperia phone, is the unusually tall, slim design. Sony Xperia 5 III. This is driven first and foremost by Sony's preference for a 21:9 aspect ratio display, intended to be ideal for watching movies, but it holds more appeal than that alone, not least because the slim screen is much more comfortable to hold. Combined with the fact that the 5 III is essentially a compact version of the flagship Xperia 1 III, this is one of those increasingly rare beasts, an actually small phone, and one that doesn't compromise on specs to do it. It helps that it's also a premium phone, with an aluminium frame and a protective Gorilla Glass 6 coating on both the front and back. I've reviewed it in black, but you can also buy the phone in green and pink, depending on the country. There's the fact that instead of a notch or a pinhole camera, Sony has kept the selfie shooter in a thick top bezel, with a chin below to match. That does give you an uninterrupted display, but adds to the elongated aesthetic and arguably feels a little less modern. Then there are the buttons. The volume button is unremarkable, but the power button doubles as a fingerprint sensor, a frustratingly inconsistent one, I must say, and below that you get dedicated buttons for Google Assistant, which I don't love, and the camera shutter, which I do. Even the water resistance here is odd. Sony uses an IP65/68 rating, which means the phone is technically rated against two different types of water damage, low-pressure jets and full immersion, in 1.5 meters for up to 30 minutes. Sony has done much to hype the 4K, 120Hz panel on the Xperia 1 III, and while the 5 III doesn't quite match that resolution, on this smaller scale it doesn't need to. Instead, the 6.1 inches display here runs at 1080 by 2520, which at this size is still enough to give you a dense 449 ppi pixel density. It's still 120Hz refresh rate, so you'll get smooth and fluid animation throughout, though you can only choose between fixed 60Hz or 120Hz modes, with no dynamic adjustment. This is an OLED panel, so you can expect great colors in deep blacks, and Sony offers a choice of different color modes, a vibrant standard mode, and a more natural skewing creator mode, along with an auto mode that decides which to apply when. Customizable white balance gives you even more versatility, along with an automatic video enhancement option, though the display as a whole is oddly dim. I've already mentioned the thin 21:9 aspect ratio, but it's worth emphasizing again. This is really optimized for watching movies, which often come in that or similar aspect ratios, though other content will often end up being letterboxed, and apps fortunately adapt well to the different shape. Some small phones drop their specs down to cut costs, but Sony's approach with the 5 III is similar to Apple's with the iPhone 13 mini. That means you'll still get the flagship Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 5G chipset, here paired with 8GB of RAM and either 128GB or 256GB of storage. Unfortunately, Sony doesn't seem to have matched its cooling tech to the small form factor here, and the result is that the Xperia 5 III gets hot when running anything challenging, not to mention when charging, and it seems clear that this is limiting performance. Looking at synthetic benchmarks, the phone performs well but clearly behind some other key Snapdragon 888 rivals, including the Xperia 1 III. In fact, its Geekbench 5 CPU performance is even below that of last year's Xperia 5 II. Benchmarks aren't everything, and in day-to-day usage the phone still runs very smoothly, so for the average person this certainly shouldn't be a concern. But power users and gamers might be best looking elsewhere, as for any heavy use this will run hot and start to throttle, reducing performance. Connectivity is at least unambiguously strong. In addition to 5G, you'll find Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.2, along with NFC of course. The Xperia 5 III has many strengths, but it must be said that the battery is not one of them. Which isn't to say that it's a weakness either, but rather that it's distinctly average. The 4,500 mAh battery itself is a fairly typical size these days, though given that the phone itself is fairly small, it's at least welcome that the battery capacity isn't similarly diminutive. In regular use I've found that the phone quite comfortably hits a day and a bit of use even using 120Hz mode, though it's more of a stretch to hit 2 days. Even a fairly aggressive power user should find that this is an all-day device though, which is the main thing that matters. The camera on the Xperia 5 III is a funny old beast, with phenomenal hardware let down by SOSO software, unless you have the photography prowess to go manual and treat this like a DSLR. The actual lenses and sensors found on the rear of the phone are the same found in the Xperia 1 III, a 12MP, f/1.7 main lens with OIS, a 12MP, f/2.2 ultra-wide, and a rather clever 12MP periscopic telephoto lens that's capable of shooting both at 2.9x zoom with an f/2.3 aperture, and then moving to 4.4x zoom at f/2.8, also with OIS. In good light all of these lenses impress, apart from the familiar problem of slight color inconsistencies between them, far from a deal-breaker. Colors in general are restrained and mostly true to life, if even a touch faded at times, so will appeal if you're not a fan of the Instagram-ready, heavily saturated aesthetic popular with other brands. More than that, the evidence is in the app. Sony's new camera app is modeled closely on the software that runs on its actual cameras, complete with a virtual dial to select your shooting mode. Most people will want to stick with basic, which feels essentially like a standard smartphone camera, while the other modes open up vastly more complicated interfaces for managing ISO, shutter speed, focus, and so on. It's not all that unusual to offer a pro experience, and I suspect those who enjoy exploring the more manual side of photography will relish the options here. But it's a shame that in offering this, Sony has stripped back the regular mode by so much, leaving users with few of the additional shooting modes that are now smartphone staples. After ragging on Sony's camera software for a while, it's only fair to acknowledge that the company gets it right elsewhere. The Xperia 5 III runs Android 11 out of the box, and like other Sony phones this is a version with minimal modifications from the manufacturer. The Xperia 5 III has been available in the UK and Europe since September 2021, costing £899/Euro 999 for a model with 128GB storage. In the UK you can grab it from Amazon, John Lewis, AO.com, Laptops Direct, and elsewhere. It finally went on sale in the US in January 2022 with an MSRP of $999.99. It's currently available directly from Sony or on Amazon, B&H, or Best Buy. It's substantially cheaper than the £1199/$1299/Euro 1299 Xperia 1 III, but it's still an awful lot of money, closer in price to the iPhone 13 Pro than the regular 13, and more than the Samsung Galaxy S21, Pixel 6 Pro, or Xiaomi Mi 11. Hell, you could even buy the foldable Galaxy Z Flip 3 for about the same price.